Welcome to another episode of Adobe Spotlight. I'm Rob Bentley, and in this episode, we're going to take a look at the new eMedia Hub for Adobe. There's a couple of different ways you can access this Adobe eMedia Hub. One would be just to go to uen.org and then browse down the page to the bottom. You should see a link here for eMedia, and you can just click that to take you into eMedia. Alternatively, you could just go to emedia.uen.org, and that should take you directly there. At that point, I would encourage you to sign in to eMedia. If you click the sign in button, it will encourage you to sign in with your UEN account. But even if you choose not to do that, you should still be able to access the eMedia hubs, including the Adobe eMedia Hub. When you click on the Hubs button, you should see a few featured hubs, and then you can click here to see all hubs that are in eMedia. And there it is, the eMedia Hub for Adobe. I'm going to go ahead and click on that to open it up. And here we have the hub. Now, what is the purpose of this Adobe Hub in eMedia? One of its main purposes is to draw your attention to resources, videos, lesson plans, links, project ideas that are related to Adobe tools and that are stored within eMedia. And here on the Adobe eMedia Hub, you have several different ways of accessing those resources, lessons, videos, etc. The first thing you see here at the top of the hub is a search bar, and you can use this search bar to search for a specific Adobe tool, like Photoshop if you want. When you do that search, you'll find some resources related to Photoshop. Or you could search for the kind of resource you're looking for. For example, lessons that relate to Adobe products. Underneath the search bar, we have links to each of the major sections of the eMedia Hub. You can click here to move down to the About Adobe Create Utah section. You can click here to focus in on Adobe tools that are particularly useful for K-12 teachers. You can see the tool here. And then there's more information here at the right, including links. You can click here to move on to another tool, and I hope that you'll check out each of these tools that are highlighted here. Going back up, you'll see that there's another link to another section of the hub, this one titled Adobe Spotlight. When you click that link, you'll be taken to a playlist of all of the Adobe Spotlight videos, and you can browse through those to learn more about them, and in fact, to watch the videos if you'd like. So this is a great way to stay current on Adobe news and Adobe tools that we want to spotlight for students and teachers to use. In addition to Adobe Spotlight, we also have Curated Collections. Now, each of these Curated Collections features links to, like I said before, resources, videos, lessons, etc. that are in eMedia. And you can browse down through the results and locate a resource that you want to try, and then just go ahead and click on the title so that you can read more about it. And when you're ready, you can click this button to view the actual resource. In this case, it's a lesson plan that utilizes Adobe Express, which used to be called Adobe Spark. In this case, there is a Word document that you can also download and use. So be sure and check out the resource library that comes with some of these resources in eMedia. I'm going to click back a couple of times. But you can see that right now we have 6 curated collections, and these collections will grow as time goes on, gaining more resources, and in the future I'd like to add additional curated collections to this list. Going back up to the top, you can see we have 2 more sections in the Adobe Hub. We have Adobe Resources, and this is a collection of websites and other resources that Adobe has created, or in one case that UEN has created. I hope you'll check out each of these resources, but just to point out a couple, here's one called Adobe for Education YouTube channel. This is actually a wonderful resource. When you get to this YouTube channel, you'll find a collection of hundreds of videos that show teachers how to integrate many of the Adobe tools into their classrooms. There's just a wealth of creativity and knowledge found here on the Adobe for Education YouTube channel. Going back, I also wanted to spotlight this resource here, Adobe Apps for Chromebooks. Many schools and classrooms have Chromebooks in the classroom, and this webpage talks about how to use some of the Adobe products on a Chromebook. so this will be important to many teachers and students. Jumping back, I also wanted to point out we have a link here to UEN's Adobe webpage, where you can learn even more about Adobe in the state of Utah, the resources that we have, and the Adobe Create Utah project. Let's jump back and look at one final section that we have. It's here at the bottom, called Professional Learning, and just like all of the other sections, it's linked from here at the top of the Adobe Hub. Professional Learning. When you click that, it takes you directly to the Professional Learning section. This gives you information about how to get started learning Adobe tools and resources in a formal way. You can register for one of our courses. Right now we have 2, Adobe Creative Educator Level 1 and Adobe Creative Educator Level 2. These 2 courses are MOOC courses. In other words, you can start them when you want to start them, complete them as quickly as you would like, or you can take up through the end of the year to complete the courses. Once you complete those courses, you'll earn your Adobe ACE badge, Level 1 and also Level 2. It's also possible to earn college credit for completing these courses or USBE credit. In the future, there may be additional Adobe courses added to our catalog, so check back here for updates on additional courses. Finally, we have a link here for you to request an Adobe presentation at your school. If you would like a presentation for the teachers at your school, you can click this link and then click here where it says Request Professional Development, and a member of the UEN Professional Development team will come out to your school to do a presentation on Adobe Rush, Adobe Express, Character Animator, Adobe Animate, Adobe Aero or XD, or other Adobe tools. So I hope that you'll take the time to log into eMedia and to go to the eMedia hubs and check out the Adobe Hub. And then I hope that you'll return often to find resources, lesson plans, and much more related to Adobe. Thanks for watching this episode of Adobe Spotlight, and I hope you'll join me again in a future episode.